that I'm going to record this. So, well, thanks everybody for hopping on. I'll try to be very concise here and get through all my slides and not talk too much. So tonight's presentation is on the 4 pillars of health, and this is really a foundation of why I started a nutrition coaching business. And I call these the fundamentals because once you have a solid foundation in these 4 areas, I think it's just a matter of dialing in some of the details to really get to exceptional health and longevity. So today, I'm going to give a little quick overview here. Actually, I'm going to move this over here. Who am I is what we'll talk about first, and why am I doing this? And then what is nutrition coaching? Because I always think there's some ambiguity in the definition of what an actual nutrition coach is and does. And then awareness and habit change, which I always think has to come before kind of anything else can happen in any of these pillars. And then what are the 4 pillars? And I really want to go through how to measure things in each of those pillars, and then strategies to try to improve some of your habits and behaviors in those pillars. And then at the end, we'll do a little question and answer. So everybody can chime in with questions at that point. Maybe you have stuff specific to yourself too, and that'll be helpful. So who am I? I'm Brant Bermudez. I've met pretty much everybody, I think. But I'm an orthopedic occupational therapist at New Mexico Orthopedics. Lots of broken bones and things like that here, and help people post-surgically and just out of injury and getting back to life and function. I'm a certified nutrition coach through Precision Nutrition and Nutrition Coaching Institute, and most recently Beyond Macros. And I don't know, I'm kind of an information junkie in general. So I like to gather a lot of information on things, and then I like to be able to make sense of it to myself, and then be able to apply it to myself, and then be able to, and this is obviously my favorite part, is to help other people and coach other people in that area as well. So I've been a lifelong athlete. I'm obsessed with sports in general. Played college tennis and then got into triathlons, did 11 Ironmans, competed in the world championships, what seems like a lifetime ago, in 2003, then got into mountain biking, did some pretty major races there, got into CrossFit, ended up owning a gym for the last 5 years, and just recently sold that, but still manage the gym at the Mac Center, the McDermott Center. So that's definitely my background as an athlete and a person. So what is a nutrition coach? I always think this needs a little defining. A nutrition coach is really somebody educating the basics of nutrition and health, and combine that with an education and actionable behavior change. So definitely a good one needs to be skilled with communications and relationship. And I like to say what we're not too. So we're not dietitians or registered dietitians or clinicians in a medical setting. So we don't diagnose disease or prescribe meal plans for certain types of disease. That's really what an RD does. And ironically, I've talked to a lot of dietitians, and they say that they never really get anything in school telling them how to help people with behavior change and try to facilitate that. You know, everything for them is people are in a medical setting, and they're basically doing what they tell them to and eat what they tell them to because they're in that setting. So when we get out of that setting and we get back to kind of normal life, so to speak, that's when people tend to struggle and go back into their old behaviors. A perfect example of that is The Biggest Loser. Everybody's probably familiar with that show, and they did a review on 9 seasons of that, and only one person maintained some of their weight loss. Everybody else gained it back because they were out of that environment. You know, they weren't working with a trainer every day. They weren't working on their nutrition with a chef and a dietitian. And so once they left that environment, they were right back where they started in those same habits and behavior patterns, and they just gained all their weight back. So it's just kind of an interesting look into behavior change in general, which we're going to talk a lot about too. So why I started nutrition first? To me, it was really about coaching. I've coached people in the rehab setting in my job, through the gym. I love to coach people to prevent injuries and improve their strength and composition and movement. But I always noticed there was a big component, and it was usually missing for people, and that was nutrition and how it affects them. And then I realized it's not even so much that they don't know what's going on in terms of nutrition. It's that they just have so much trouble trying to integrate it into their lives. And that's where I really see the behavior change become super challenging. And it's not a knowledge problem, it's an execution problem of that knowledge. And that really comes down to our habits and our behaviors. And that's what holds us back typically from improving our health. So why is it always so challenging to make long-term changes in our behavior? Well, this one I have to say comes down to our habits. And that really comes down to what we do on a daily basis. I mean, it dictates everything, who we are, what our lifestyle's like, and ultimately our health. The people we hang out with, the daily activities we do, all this is really dictated by our habits on a daily basis. Ultimately, it really comes down to what can we do to change these behaviors and kind of get the biggest return on our investment. So if we look at our habits and try to make systematic changes to them, it usually comes down to some keystone habits and being able to get that biggest return on our investment. So something I like to tell people a lot is, if we can control our behaviors and our habits, then we can change them. But first, we have to know what those habits and behaviors are. So we have to have awareness around those habits and behaviors before we even know what to do to change them. So awareness, this is a big one. This is a challenging one. And the reason I put such a heavy emphasis on habits and behavior change is because when we talk about each pillar, first we're going to talk about how to start measuring our behaviors in that pillar so we can bring awareness to the habits. And then we're going to talk about strategies to make changes in those habits through a feedback loop. Once we're aware, then we can start making changes, and anything we can measure, we can change, right? So to not hold up the suspense any longer, the 4 pillars of health: nutrition, movement, sleep, and social connections. And, I realize these are the pillars I came up with, and it can be argued the exact names of each of these pillars. And different people are going to say and see different things in them. But nobody can really argue the general importance of each category to your overall health. And if you're doing the right things in these categories, a lot of the small things will take care of themselves in terms of your health. So I don't think these necessarily have to go in this order, but I think nutrition needs to be 1 or 2. And the reason for that is it's so interdependent with all the other habits that we have in our lives. And, if we're eating better, we're probably moving more. If we're moving more, we're probably sleeping better to rest and recover. And that probably means the people we hang out with and our social connections do similar things to us. They like to hike, or they like to do CrossFit, or they like to, play tennis, or whatever it is. Those are usually the people that define us in those relationships. So let's talk about nutrition. Of course, I could do a few seminars on this one and would love to, and maybe I'll get some input on that for future webinars. But I think the 2 things to really focus on when it comes to nutrition are the basic calories in, calories out. So that's your quantity of how much you're eating on a daily basis. This is your basics of counting calories and looking at your macros, and really is like 90%, if not more, of the determining factor of how healthy our diet is. The other 2 parts of nutrition that we really have to look at too is macronutrient quantity. So this can be more the quality part of our food. So your carbs, fats, and proteins of what you're eating. But then we also look into that window of, what's the overall quality, like how many macronutrients are in those foods. And, I popped up that, for lack of a better term, popped up the Pop-Tart and real food example. So the very last part of that would be timing of your food, and this is the minutia part. Once you've dialed the other ones in, then you can start thinking about how many carbs you're going to put around your workout, and if you need a recovery shake because of how hard you worked out. And some of those things we tend to concentrate on early on when we haven't even put the amount of food we're eating and the quality of the food we're eating in place at all. But just to give you an example of this, nutrition to me is really kind of a zero-sum game. If you're eating a variety of whole foods and you're preparing most of your meals with lots of vegetables, healthy proteins, sticking with your healthy fats, then this is just going to push out some of the crappier processed foods. You just simply won't have room to eat the calorie dense and nutritionally void foods. By virtue, your diet's going to be covering all the nutritional deficiencies you might have. Your diet's going to be giving you all the building blocks you need in terms of protein for muscle and to stay healthy. And I popped this example up because on the left you have a Pop-Tart, and that's just one Pop-Tart. And the first thing that jumps out to me is there's so many ingredients in there. It's mind-boggling, and I don't even know what the last 10 ingredients even are. But then you look at the calories on there, and one Pop-Tart that weighs 52 grams is 200 calories. Well, I just typed in 200 calorie whole foods into Google, and it popped up these pictures. So you got 909 grams of mushrooms is 200 calories, 308 grams of a mango, 606 grams of strawberries. So you can see how much more density these foods have, not to mention the micronutrients and the nutritional value, than these super processed foods that our body doesn't even really recognize as real food. And we tend to just overeat those foods because we don't know when we're full, and we don't know how to override the sweet and salty and fat combination together. So take that in terms of the nutrition as a small glimpse into what we work on the most at Nutrition First. So strategies for change in nutrition. Tracking what you eat. This is definitely the first one, and this is the awareness step. What I like to talk about here is take a week, track what you eat, put it into an app like MyFitnessPal, even write it down in a journal and write down what time you ate and maybe a note or two around it. And this is proven strategy of bringing awareness to what you're actually putting in your body every day. And once you figure that out, you track it for a week and you're true to yourself and you're putting in what you actually do eat. And MyFitnessPal spits out the daily macros and the calories and everything else. You can see kind of where you're at. You probably think like, oh, I eat 1,500 calories a day. And then you track it for a week and you're like, oh, wow. On Saturday, I ate 2,400 calories. And then on Sunday, I ate 1,600 calories. And then you average it all out over the week and you're at, 2,200 calories or more. So just bringing awareness in general to how many calories you eat, the macronutrients in each food, even when you eat, those are all good things to be able to think about as you're tracking those over a week and see where you're at. So now you got all this information over a week. So what's your next step? Well, definitely make one small change, or make a small change and see what happens with that small change. And it doesn't have to be challenging. Like my favorite one with people is like, hey, look, you drink 30 ounces of water a day. So let's get that up to half your body weight. You weigh 150 pounds. Let's get to 75 ounces of water a day. And you buy a nice water bottle, you track how you drink, maybe you make little marks on the side of the water bottle every day, or you set an alarm and you take little sips every hour. Well, this is where you start to make a little bit of a change and you make this a habit in your life, and that might take a week or two. And then you're going to make another little change because of what you've brought your awareness to. Maybe you realize like, oh, I always eat at 9 o'clock at night. I have a bowl of ice cream, or I drink 2 beers or whatever. So that's where you can start to make those little changes, in the nighttime routine and kind of see how that affects you. And that's really where I say, just don't change too much too quickly, or you're never going to be able to stick with it. Whoops, skipped a slide. All right, pillar number 2 is movement. So this is one of my favorite, as being an athlete my whole life and loving to work out. Think about it as try to sweat at least 4 or 5 times a week. This can include sports or walking the dog, or, fast-paced or, more intense yoga, hot yoga. I mean, you name it. There's literally hundreds of things you can do. A big critical one is getting your joints moved through a full range of motion. This is critical for longevity. Once you can't squat or lunge or, reach down and put your socks on, I mean, all those things lead to loss of independence. You can't get yourself off the floor. Maybe you can't reach behind your back. All these things start to push us to the direction of, well, you can't get dressed. You can't wipe your own ass, for lack of, or more vulgarity. You can't perform any basic number of activities of daily living. And when it gets to that point, the next step is you need a lot of assistance and you're pushing towards a nursing home. So that's my comment on the full range of motion. But then at the same time, you got to maintain, if not build, muscle throughout your lifetime. I mean, we're at a disadvantage as we age. We lose muscle, year to year and decade to decade. So if we're not working and pushing our muscle and trying to grow it, then we're probably just losing it year after year. And muscle by far is the most important metabolic tissue in our body. It helps with absorbing blood sugar. It helps maintain, you can store energy in it, so to speak, and it helps maintain your lipid levels. We need muscle in our body because it's such an important tissue. The last thing I would say is play. Go out and play. If movement to you is playing tennis 3 days a week, or going for a walk with your friends and doing a little stretching routine at home, great, do it. But within that, you need to push yourself a little bit. Push yourself with a little resistance, lift a little bit of weight here and there, do some body weight activities like squats or push-ups or something that you're kind of pushing your muscle and your tissue with on a regular basis. So strategies for trying to make a change in your movement. The first one's do what you like. I just reiterated that multiple times. If you like to ride a bike, do that. If you like to hike, do that. It has to be fun if you're going to make it part of your lifestyle. So put it into your life, make sure it's fun, make it a part of your life. But that comes back to push yourself a little bit, lift a little bit of heavy weight. Maybe you do some sprints during your morning run or walk, challenge yourself with a new sport just to kind of challenge your brain and your body together. Having said all that, I'm a huge advocate for having somebody that knows what they're doing help you get into some kind of exercise program. Hire a coach or a personal trainer, or get into a group fitness class where you have somebody at least watching your movement and making sure you're not going to hurt yourself. These are going to save you from these starting programs, getting injured, having to back off, trying to come back, and you get this up and down pattern over and over, and you haven't made any progress after 6 months, versus just starting slow, allowing your body to adapt to these stresses, making sure you have somebody that knows what they're doing, watching you and helping you with movement and improving your movement. And think about it as this low trajectory over a really long, distant horizon. If you can do that, you're going to be more fit in 5 years than you are now, and you're going to be more fit in 10 years than you are in 5 years. So that's the long-term goal. All right, pillar number 3, sleep. This one is my biggest struggle. And if you can get at least 7 hours, which seems to be pretty good for me, 7 to 7.5 is kind of my sweet spot, and even up to 9 hours. They found that sleeping past 9 hours starts to become a little bit more of a detriment and can actually kind of push you in the other direction, too much of a good thing, so to speak. I also like to say that sleep is recovery. This is when our body repairs things from the day's stresses, tissues flush out all the little waste metabolites that you've accumulated throughout the day, repairs muscles, kind of improves you from the movement and exercise you've done. But not to scare everybody, but to point out some of the crazy things that I've learned about sleep and sleep deprivation. Even a night or two of sleep deprivation can lead to all kinds of problems. You're basically pre-diabetic, your immune system's weakened. This causes all kinds of fluctuations in body composition. And this is 1 or 2 days. I mean, you're on your way to becoming a diabetic after just 1 or 2 bad days. They've done studies and found that people that sleep less one day tend to consume 300 to 500 more calories the next day, and they don't know why. It's just kind of a subconscious thing. You just tend to eat a little bit more and maybe snack on more junk. But then we move to chronically sleep deprived. Now every process in your body is affected. Your hormone levels fluctuate, everything from reaction time to basic thinking and memory. They've done sleep deprivation studies and found that people can have a higher than I think it's 0.10 blood alcohol, which is way beyond the legal limit for being intoxicated. And 3 nights of sleep deprivation, you're at the same level. So it's actually even listed as a carcinogen because it raises every type of cancer that's out there if you are a night shift worker or if you have chronically poor sleep. It also comes down, just like nutrition, to quality and quantity. And really, in this situation, good quality sleep is going to be better than the quantity of sleep. If you're just in bed for 8 or 9 hours, but your quality of your sleep stinks, then you're not going to get much out of it. But if you're getting good quality sleep and you're getting into those different sleep cycles and you're getting plenty of deep REM sleep and some of those other stages, then that's going to really help your body kind of flush all that out. Sleep is directly affected by eating well. That's going to help your body rest and digest better. And then if you're moving a lot, that's going to make you fatigued and that's going to make you sleep a little bit better. So now you can start to see kind of the interplay between all these pillars. I mean, a big personal story for me was, if there's something positive out of COVID, is COVID hit, everything shut down, the kids' schedules dropped off. All of a sudden I had time to get to bed a little earlier and sleep a little later because I wasn't opening up the gym or having to be there at 5 a.m. And it literally took me like 3 weeks to catch up on sleep before I started to feel like I was decent again and realize that, okay, 7 to 7.5 hours of sleep is a non-negotiable and I need to do it if I'm going to make myself healthier. So that's just my little personal tidbit on sleep and kind of figuring that out for myself. All right, cute things that sleep. So have to get Maui in there. This is Marvelous Maui. She's famous on Instagram if you want to look her up. But we've all heard the phrase dog tired and sleep like a dog. Well, there's Maui sleeping away. All right, strategies to change your sleep a little bit. So tracking your sleep. This is that awareness component again. We need to know about the quality and the quantity to really be objective and know what's happening in our sleep, and then be subjective with how we actually feel throughout the day. The technology is pretty awesome now. Between tracking sleep and sleep recovery, it's basically getting better every 6 months to a year. And some of the ones that are really neat there, Oura Ring, it's an actual ring, you just wear it. It tracks your heart rate variability and uses body temperature to measure the different stages of sleep you go through at night. And it's been compared to being 90% accurate to a clinical sleep study. So pretty amazing you can get that kind of result from something like that. The Apple Watch kind of integrates with all these different things and can give you an idea. And then the Whoop band is pretty cool. It's actually measuring your strain from how you sleep to what you do during the day. And it gives you like a recovery score and tells you kind of what you should do that day. And if your recovery is lower, you should do something easy, or maybe you just stretch versus, thinking like, oh, I got a 6-mile run plan for today, so I'm going to push it. Well, the Whoop's going to tell you like, hey, don't do that because you're pushing into that strain of lack of recovery from sleep being so poor. All these things are really affected by alcohol and stress. But alcohol and stress come down to even less being affected by electronics. So, even though I love electronics, like looking at your phone and watching TV and looking at your computer up until the minute you go to bed, and they've done studies on that and found that it doesn't get you into your normal melatonin production, and your body doesn't even know it's nighttime. So it's going to take you longer through your routine to kind of get into that rhythm and get into those sleep-wake cycles when you do fall asleep. Definitely in terms of nutrition, what I would throw in there around that is give your body at least 2 hours before you go to bed, and don't eat anything in that window. Even 3 hours would probably feel better. Think of this as just kind of your rest and digest time. Work in a little bit more carbohydrates in the evening. This can help kind of calm down your nervous system, and it'll help with getting you into that sleep mode. And You guys probably all know this, stay away from the stimulants. 8 to 10 hours is kind of the recommended, like cut the caffeine off. And everybody's affected by caffeine differently, so kind of know your tolerance to that. And the last thing about sleep is supplementation. You put some of these other things in place, now you can start thinking about supplementation. So there's all kinds of sleep aids, everything from the ZMA is a zinc magnesium supplement to melatonin, which is kind of the most well-known one out there. Some of the more effective ones are different mushroom extracts like reishi mushrooms, and you can buy different teas that contain some of these mushroom extracts, and they can help a lot with getting your body into that mode of wanting to sleep and producing melatonin. The biggest one is if you're on sleep medications, you got to figure out a way to get off those. Those are in the categories of Ambien, Lunesta. They're all in this hypnotic to even anticonvulsant category in terms of where they're listed in terms of the drug references. So, you're not really getting sleep when you're on these things. You're basically just tranquilizing yourself, and you're not getting any recovery. You're not going through these cycles. You're not flushing out all the metabolites. The last thing I'll say on sleep is get a routine. This will drive my wife crazy to hear me say this, but I have a pretty strict routine at night. What I do in the kitchen to get ready for the next day, come in the bathroom, brush my teeth, floss, mouthwash, do all those things. Then I always read for 10 to 15 minutes, and that kind of puts me in this mode. I know I'm getting ready for bed. I know my body's getting ready to go to sleep, and then I get in bed and read a little bit, and that's my kind of nighttime routine to get me to sleep. All right, pillar number 4, social connections. So this one's definitely a little more challenging to measure and know, but just think about your social connections. Like, what's your social community? What's your faith community? How strong are your family ties, and how often do you see your family? And also just thinking about like what's your meaning in life? Like, what do you do, and do you have purpose with that? And how balanced is your life in terms of stress and fun and some of those things that can kind of bring about all the social connections. So the example I always think is really interesting is if anybody's ever heard of the blue zones. So these are kind of 5 populations throughout the world that have the longest longevity of anybody. Their median age is in the mid to upper 80s to even low 90s. And these different communities in Japan and Sardinia and Greece, the biggest thing with all of them is they're all really tight communities. They have extended families that live together. They may even be like on an island, so they're a little more isolated, so the community is even tighter. But it just goes to show that these social connections kind of keep us connected to the world, and that's why I really put, that they're kind of the glue of this pillar's the glue that kind of holds us all together. The one I always think about too is like, when's the last social gathering you went to that didn't involve food? Birthday parties and potlucks and barbecues. Well, the stuff we used to be able to do in good old 2019. But, as you think about that, everything kind of involves these different pillars. Maybe you're going to a barbecue and everybody's eating. It's a social gathering. Hey, we're going to, play some Frisbee, or we're going to play cornhole or whatever. So now you got movement incorporated, and there's laughter, and all those things kind of roll together in life. And then I just think about how our relationships define us. What are your relationships in your life? Maybe you're a mother, or a father, or son, daughter, you're a therapist, you're a runner, a CrossFitter, you're a teacher, all the different things you do, and all the different people that are on this, and their different relationships that kind of define who they are. That's how they're connected to the social world. I always think of, throw the family slide in there as our cute picture this year. I didn't think of these outfits, but I do think they look pretty cool. We look young. So, and then my little baby Maui, she made it in again. She's famous. So think of family and love and those relationships. And then stress. I couldn't not put this slide in after reading it. I was like, well, this may not be the true definition of stress, but it definitely applies to most of our lives when it comes to stress. But the true definition of stress is really defined as, I think it's multifactorial. It's got to be physical, and it's psychological as well. but it can come from within depending on how much pressure you put on yourself and how you handle stress, and it can be externally imposed on you. But no matter where it comes from, it's always how we handle these things and how we deal with the situations and what our response is to the stresses around us. Whenever I think about stress, I just think about balancing it out. I mean, I'm a person that really kind of enjoys stress in general, physical, psychological. I mean, doing things like this push me because it makes me learn more, and it's not really even that stressful to me as much as it is enjoyable. So just balancing all those things together, and then balancing them with sleep and recovery, and kind of figuring out what's your stress point, and what's a good or tolerable amount of stress for you. Let's see here. Next slide. So stress and trying to balance these ebbs and flows. I always have to go back to mindset on these. This is something that I'm pretty passionate about and work hard on. And I think if you're handling stress well, then that just kind of lends you to be able to handle more stress and be able to react to situations when they are stressful and calm everybody down around you. And no matter how stressful other people's lives are, you're going to be that calming force that can help them kind of manage those things. Stress is a perceived response. It's perceived to whatever you think it is. And that's where that mindset piece comes in. So be objective about it. Figure out what the first steps are for you to do in terms of stress. And we'll try to figure out a few little strategies for it here too. But, what really stresses you out? That's kind of the first thing to think about. Relationships can definitely be stressful, but they can also be, the greatest part of your day and your life. And I always like to think of it as like cultivate those relationships that give you energy and make you feel empowered and make you feel good. And then try to end those relationship vampires. Those are the people that suck energy out of you, and those relationships that, you probably just need to cut off in order to make yourself less stressed out and to impose less stress on yourself. All right, strategies for change, a little more challenging in terms of relationships. So incorporate as many pillars together as you can. This is one I always think is interesting. I was playing golf with my son and my father-in-law and a buddy of mine on Sunday, and I thought, well, I'm incorporating as many pillars as I can right here, minus sleep probably, because playing golf, it's beautiful outside, I'm walking a golf course, and I'm hanging out with some of my favorite people. So, I'm getting 3 of those pillars in, and that was after I fasted all morning and, just trying to work on my health and my longevity by doing a little bit of fasting. So it's kind of like, okay, brought those 3 pillars together. Some of the easier ways to measure stress in your life or to kind of see how these relationships are affecting you too is looking at that heart rate variability and your sleep quality. I know that's the first thing that gets affected for me, is if I'm having a lot of trouble in life or life is stressful, I have trouble sleeping because I'm thinking about it too much. So challenge yourself to kind of see if you can just sit there quietly for 10 minutes. I know this is a challenge for me, but that's a challenge I would give everybody here. And, some of the good ones, especially with the family, is try to have dinner together. We struggle with that, but since COVID, we've done a lot of eating dinner together. Kids' schedules aren't nearly as busy. We can play cards together, just kind of those nice social interactions. And then call up an old friend. You can Zoom call them, FaceTime them, whatever, but it's just funny to go through some of those old situations and talk about the past and what it was and some of those fun things to think about. So I want to wrap it up too by saying that it's not about one being better than the other. It's about balance of all 4 pillars. And if you neglect one of them, it's going to show up everywhere in your life and it's going to be your biggest limiter. And I would say that if you dig deep into one, then the other pillars are going to suffer too. Try to find balance those 4 pillars and make it a stable foundation to build your life on, and work on all of them and get them to where they're all running well for you. And then you can dig into certain ones. Maybe it's your nutrition, or maybe it's your movement and you want to challenge yourself to do something you've never done before. but make sure you have balance in all 4 of those pillars before you jump too deep into one of them. So my challenge for you is figure out where you're at in each pillar. Everybody's going to get a PDF emailed to them. It'll kind of summarize everything, and it'll give you some of the tips and tricks and then strategies to not only bring awareness to yourself in those pillars, but then talk about how to pick something and try to measure that change over time. Be as scientific about it as you can. Try to pick one thing, measure it for several days or a week or 2 weeks, and then kind of see if that's making a change. If it's improving, great. Keep using that until it improves and improves. If it's not making a change, then try something else and measure that and see if that's making a change and improving and progressing you towards where you want to be. But really only you can know where you want to be in those areas, and what's your goal, your end goal for those areas. I think it's pretty easy to find this last one to 2 things you can do every week that incorporates at least 2 of these pillars. That's easy. Movement and nutrition, or movement and social connections. You can kind of look at my golf example. I know I slept good that night because I walked like 18,000 steps playing golf. So, that kind of ties all those different pillars into each other. So for everybody that was on this, I kind of talked about this a little bit, but I wanted to just offer a little nutrition coaching special, especially as we come into the holidays, that if you sign up for 6 months of nutrition coaching, then you get a month free. So you get 7 months for the price of 6. And that's $189 a month. So it basically saves you $10 a month to do the 6-month plan. Plus you get a whole free month too. And then this is possibly our new logo. So what does everybody think of our new logo there? But what I'll do now is I'll just kind of open it up to questions. And if anybody has questions, just unmute yourself. Who we got there? Amanda's unmuted herself. What do you got?
I'm trying to do camera. I have a very quick one, Brant. You had talked about for measuring sleep, the different devices for measuring sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't wear the watches because I have stupid carpal tunnel, so I have to wear braces. So the Eura ring, you said that's a ring?
Yeah, it's actually, it's rigid, but it looks just like a basic little, I actually have them kind of designer looking now, but it looks like a basic little silicone ring almost.
Okay, cool.
And,
awesome.
and they tell you just really have to wear it at night, but some people wear it during the day too and just kind of track that heart rate variability with it. And it's a one-time purchase too. You don't have to pay an ongoing thing with it either.
Cool. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Of course. Anybody else got questions?
Yeah, I got a question for you. So I'm kind of similar in the same boat where I'm like a workout fanatic and I love it more than anything. But like I've never really been taught how to eat well. I eat well, but never really taught how to eat properly. Where do you suggest beginning with that whole nutrition piece?
Well, I think first you need to know what eating well means for you. So what is your eating like right now? So that kind of awareness factor. It can be as simple as tracking in terms of just writing it down in a notebook, what you ate and, approximate amounts to it. Or you can get out the food scale and you can weigh and measure everything and you can put it into MyFitnessPal and it's going to give you pretty accurate macronutrients for everything and it's going to give you total daily calories. And then, I always tell people to look at it over a whole week and take your averages. Once you're aware of that, you might find, let's put it this way, everybody I do that with finds pretty amazing things happen. They're like, wow, I didn't realize I was only eating 60 grams of protein, or look how many carbohydrates I eat on a daily basis, or wow, I didn't realize I eat something every night at 8:30 and then I go to bed at 9:15. That's kind of go to those low-hanging fruit right away and make sure in terms of your calories that you're not eating more than you need. But then the next step would be make sure you're getting a balance of your macronutrients. I usually tell people somewhere in the 0.8 to 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. So if you're it's easy math. If you're a 200-pound guy, then you're going to be eating like 180 to 200 grams of protein a day. that's your first thing you want to try to make sure you're hitting is your protein numbers. Then you're going to kind of look at overall calories for the day too. And then the second one is like, okay, how much fat am I eating? And make sure you're not overeating fat, which is really easy to get in things too. You can put a couple tablespoons of salad dressing on something and all of a sudden it's, 12 to 15 grams of fat, or, one little piece of butter on something. And it's like, oh, wow, if I'm only wanting to eat 50 to 60 grams of fat a day, I just ate, a quarter of my fat intake in salad dressing, thinking the salad was super healthy. And all of a sudden you're like, wow, that was 15 to 20 grams of fat in that salad. So that would be my advice to you, is know where you're starting at, get an awareness around it, and then kind of see what the most glaring, low-hanging vegetable, not fruit, is, and kind of go after that one.
Thank you.
You bet. Anybody else? Nobody's asleep, so that's a good thing. All right, cool. If nobody else has any questions, then probably tomorrow you'll get a email with that PDF attached. Oh, you got a question, Ronette?
Hey, Brad. I do, yeah. I think I struggle, especially now with I'm like in my early stages of menopause. I don't know if that has any kind of effect on, the body's just going crazy and trying to figure out what's going on, or that's where I'm struggling.
Yeah, that gets a little bit more. First thing I would say with that is, talking to your doctor and kind of figuring out some of the blood work, some of the internal things that are going on. So knowing some of your hormone levels, knowing some of your vitamin levels, and just your basic lipid panels, and knowing, what's your blood pressure and some of those kind of internal objective things to know. They're going to do certain tests like with thyroid and some of the other variables with your hormones as you're getting premenopausal and into menopause, because they're going to want to know that stuff as well. And some of those things can help you know a little bit more on what to eat. And there's a whole another world of natural supplements you can use to kind of help with hormone replacement, or even helping with hot flashes, or having, some of those hormone related problems. In general, it's not going to change what you eat tremendously. I mean, surprisingly, people think like, oh, I'm premenopausal or I'm postmenopausal. Now I can't eat carbs. And it's like, no, it doesn't really change much. I mean, the science is still there of calories in and calories out. And then you got to look at quality and know what those macronutrients are. And if you're getting enough of each of those things. And it really goes back to what I was just kind of talking to Tori about, was like, yeah, you just got to know where you're at and track it a little bit. And that's going to give you some answers on what you're doing in terms of habits and how many calories you're getting. And if you're overeating, you're going to gain weight, whether you're premenopausal or postmenopausal or, no menopausal. So that's my first suggestion, would be talk to your doctor, get some of those hormone levels and know some of your blood work, and then just track everything. Go into an awareness week of yourself and kind of take a hard look at your habits and what you eat and drink and all your calories. And then, if you do that kind of stuff, from there, things usually pop out that are pretty obvious that you can make little changes with. All right. Anybody else?
Thank
You
Brian,
bet.
I got a question.
Darcy. Good to hear from you.
I feel like this kind of goes along with nutrition and the movement piece. I feel like I don't know, I'm inundated with a lot of supplements and different things that you can take to get the most out of your workout. What are some things that you definitely recommend, either for recovery or just making sure that your workouts are as effective for strengthening muscle recovery? What do you definitely recommend as a go-to for that type of thing?
Yeah, the most proven things supplement-wise are the simplest ones. In all honesty, caffeine, so that's a little bit of a stimulant. It makes you start to break down fat a little bit, so that's going to give you some energy. The other one that's good for muscle building is creatine. That one's been studied for literally decades. and just a little scoop of creatine, which is cheap as hell, that in a little pre-workout of some kind, or even I've had people just mix that in a cup of coffee, and they get their caffeine and their creatine together. So some of that comes down to like, that puts you in the mood, that gives you, some of that immediate energy to want to work out. And if that's going to make you work out a little bit harder, then you're going to get more out of your workout. You're going to get, more muscle. You're going to work your cardiovascular system harder. So some of those things are going to come from that little bit of a stimulant. It depends when you work out. Like if I work out early morning, so I get up, drink some kind of pre-workout, and I do like an amino acid complex in there, and I put a scoop of creatine in that and just blend that up. It's got a little caffeine. It's got a little bit of amino acids since I've just been fasted all night and I don't eat anything. That way it kind of gets a little amino acids in my blood, and it'll help with just trying not to catabolize muscle, and try not to kind of digest muscle a little bit. Depending on your length of your workouts, which if you're over an hour and a half, like 90 plus minutes, then you probably need some intra workout type of supplement. And at that point, it can be some BCAAs, some branched chain amino acids. It could even be a little bit of what's called highly cyclic dextrin, which is just like a really simple carbohydrate with that. But that's pretty rare for a lot of people to go that long working out and be pretty intense that whole time. That's like you're training for a half marathon or something like that. You need some of that stuff during workout. And then post-workout, it's really, I tell people within 30-ish minutes or so, try to get a good combination of 2 parts to 1 of carbohydrates to protein. So that might be like 40 grams of carbs, 20 grams of protein. So 2 to 1 carbs to protein. And then within maybe 90 minutes, you just eat a good balanced meal. That's your balanced plate of, you're getting 30, 40% from protein, 30% or so from carbs, and 20% from fat kind of thing. And you're going to be fine. I mean, they've done a bunch of studies too that have looked at if you're kind of your typical workout once a day, 5-6 days a week kind of person, what matters the most in terms of building muscle and body composition is what you do on a daily basis around your nutrition. So it doesn't even have that much to do with nutrient timing or the nutrients you eat during or, right before or after a workout. It really comes down to like, if you work out 5 or 6 days a week, but then you eat pizza and drink beer 4 days a week, yeah, you're not going to be you're going to probably gain weight and you're not going to build that much muscle. And so, again, it comes down to those baseline habits of that. But those are my big ones in terms of working out. I think you can get way into the weeds and you can take all kinds of stuff like, oh, you got to mix in beta alanine with L-arginine and get these different essential amino acids. And, that doesn't matter. I mean, if you're starving yourself or you're coming off a 24-hour fast, yeah, you probably need some of that stuff just to make sure you have a little energy and you get to work. But, caffeine, a little bit of creatine, and then a good post-workout kind of shake, depending on how hard you worked, probably be good to go with that. Maybe a BCAA in there if you like the flavor and it gives you something to kind of sip on pre and during workout kind of thing. Those are my favorites.
Thank you.
Good question. You betcha. Anybody else? This is fun.
I have a million questions for you, so I can email you, but I have one quick one. Do you do like
Sure.
nutritional plans, or do you only do like the 6-month program?
So I don't write like nutritional plans per se, like actual, like here's your meals, eat this for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, because I don't really feel like that teaches you anything. I feel like in the process, when I work with somebody and we do nutrition coaching, those are things we cover. And if that's, a big goal for you is figuring out how to put all those parts together and look a little bit more into which macros you need when and time that a little bit more and then work towards your goals with that. I like to teach you the skills and then have you be able to put that stuff together. And I'll challenge you with that. I'll be like, okay, you're going to write a meal plan for this week, email it to me on Sunday and I want to see what it is. And then we're going to analyze it and we're going to talk about, what you have in there and what maybe it's lacking and look at your schedule for the week and make sure when you can prep those foods and how you're going to, like a day like today, I left the house at 9:15 and I'm going to get home at probably 8:30. So it's like, I got to have enough food for a snack, for lunch, for dinner, so kind of planning all those lifestyle things together. I feel like that when you get done with me and nutrition coaching, you have tools to make yourself your own coach, and you can continue on with being able to look back and check things and know where you're at with your nutrition, and being able to modify things if you're going to change to, I want to run a marathon. How am I going to modify my diet to support that? Or I'm going to lift weights because I want to put on muscle. How am I going to change my diet to support that? So you have the tools to be able to do that yourself versus me just handing you a meal plan, which can make you, it can help short term, but it gives you no real long-term knowledge of what to do. So that's got to get that question a lot too. Does that help answer wise?
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
Cool. You bet. But yeah, email me with other questions for sure. All right. Anybody else?
Check your chat bar there, dear.
Oh, how do I bring that up? Whiteboard, change layout. Captions? No.
Brant doesn't do a lot of Google.
No, I'm like, where's the
stuff.
chat bar?
It's right
Up at
next
the
to
top.
where the people are. It says like 15.
Oh, it's like a little
people,
caption
and
looking
that little
thing.
box with the lines in it.
Oh, there we go. Jamie, he eats the gross ones from Costco. Protein bars. Yeah, those are my cheapo ones from Costco. I kind of use them as an adult candy bar. So I figure like, well, instead of eating a Snickers, at least there's a little bit of protein in there, and it kind of satisfies my sweet tooth. So I always leave that in my calorie budget for the day. But the ones I really like that I think are pretty high quality. Oh, look, I have right here in my food drawer at work. Are these? They're a collagen protein bar from. It's called Bulletproof. So this is the guy that came up with like Bulletproof coffee, and he does like all the like C8 fats, like your coconut oils and that kind of stuff with the Bulletproof coffee. I think their ingredients are really good. It's got a little bit more carbs than a lot of protein bars, and not as much protein as most protein bars. It's only 12 grams. But it's kind of the same thing. I mean, it's still, don't get me wrong, they're all adult candy bars in some form or another. It's just a matter of how that fits into your life. Try not to eat 3 a day kind of thing. But I buy the Costco, like Kirkland brand. And then there's ones that are literally like a candy bar. I don't know. They're like a triple layer baked one. It's some Chef Irvine's protein bar. And it's like, yeah, you're use those as you would use supplements. It's not something that you want to do more than maybe 30 to 40% of your daily protein intake with. So that's all I had in my chat bar now that I figured out where it is. I like Amanda drinking her water. Good job.
My second one today.
Good job.
I didn't know you had talked about water. This one was really cool if anybody else wants a neat water bottle. It's really helped. I just got it off Amazon, and I like typed in a timed water bottle and it just does like you fill it up twice, and that's all I can do for Brant right now.
Yeah. Well, and the backstory on that was Amanda and I started working together 3 weeks ago, and I told her, say, you can drink half your body weight in water. And the first week she came back and she's like, I can't drink that much water. I hate water. She's like, I literally force myself. I go in the kitchen and I fill up a glass and I just chug it. And then I go back and do everything I'm doing. And I was like, okay, well, she's like, can I flavor it? Which I think is fine. Some of the non-calorie flavoring type of things are great. Crystal Lights and Mios and some of those. But then the other thing we talked about was just spreading that water intake out. So, having little sips every hour, drinking 3 to 4 ounces every hour versus drinking 12 to 16 ounces in one shot and then not drinking any water for 3 or 4 hours. Because the other problem she was having was she was having to go to the bathroom all the time. because your body just can't process that much water at once. So it just shunts it into your kidneys and you pee it out. So if you can sip it throughout the day, your body's going to absorb it better and it'll get the water into your, the hydration actually get into your cells. So even though it's more challenging, like setting alarms and timers and doing that kind of stuff to make sure you can kind of sip throughout the day is definitely more effective for hydration. And then it's always like, okay, what's my awareness around water? Look at your pee. If your pee's bright yellow, you got issues. Either taking a bunch of B vitamins or you're not drinking enough. So kind of that light straw colored, it's not clear, but it's not yellow by any means. You want to get to that every day. You should pee probably 5 to maybe even 7 or 8 times a day at the most. So that's a couple things to think about with hydration.
Yeah, it's been a game changer to sip on it versus chug it, because now I pee like a normal person.
Yeah, perfect. Oh yeah, Jamie likes her 1 bars. So, all right, anybody else? Good questions. If you guys have more questions and you don't want to share them with everybody, just shoot me an email too. Something I offer at Nutrition First is a free coaching call. So, I say 30 minutes, but usually I talk more than that and we end up talking a little longer. And now because of, another good thing that's come out of COVID is I just do everything through Google Meet. So we get to see each other. I get to record it, take notes, and I put it in a Google folder for us. If you do decide to go through with nutrition coaching with me, we start to save all that stuff in a Google Drive folder. That way it's all accessible to both of us and you can go back and listen to things if you want. And that's where we share all our documents and everything too. So, offer that free coaching call if anybody just wants to know what nutrition coaching is a little bit more and if it will actually, benefit them or how it could benefit them. And I mean, it's a big step. You're going to make some significant changes in your life if you work with me, and it's going to be challenging and, it's not for everybody. So, every once in a while I'll talk to somebody and they're like, yeah, I just don't think I'm ready to make big changes, and I want you to commit to it. So take it seriously. All right. If that's everybody's questions, I appreciate your time. Thanks for attending and chiming in. I would ask for this from everybody too. Like if this was helpful and there's other topics that you think would be cool, I'd love to do more of these. I've been trying to do a lot more videos and even just topics on videos to do as well. I'm going to kind of go through our whole coaching process. I did a whole series on like coaching and accountability. But if people want more like functional stuff, like I want to do a whole series on like how do you grocery shop and how do you plan and prep. And I even have a professional chef we're going to do some videos with, and he's going to go through like prepping and storing food and utensils you need in your kitchen and things like that I think will be really helpful for people as well. So once everybody can unquarantine and we can get some people together, we're going to do some of those videos too. But just email me with suggestions or situations or scenarios you run into on a regular basis that you would like more information on or you'd like for me to talk about too. And, like I said, I selfishly get a lot out of these because I research a lot, and it kind of pushes me to know the material backwards and forwards, and that makes me feel more comfortable teaching it to other people and coaching other people. So thanks everybody. Email if you want.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You bet. Okay, everybody have a good night. Bye-bye.